Good evening, everyone. My name is Diane Fitzpatrick. I'm the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club. It is so awesome to be in person and to be around friends. So thank you so much for being here. We have a wonderful celebration. We get to honor some incredible people. Before we get started with our program tonight, I just want to take a moment to pause and say a tribute to our veterans in the room. And thank you for your service, and I want to wish you a happy Veterans Day. So could we do that? Like everything in life, you don't do it alone. We couldn't have done this event without our sponsors. So I'd like to thank Dick Agnos and Agnos Company, MT Bank, Basque Imaging, Cohen Investment Advisors, McMahon Group and Wells Fargo Advisors, Tronsolito and Davis Insurance, the staff, the board, the volunteers, the community. A special thanks to the back room, Amoskeag Beverages for tonight's refreshments, Catherine Pollock and ProWeight for their service tonight. Thank you, Catherine and the team. You could do some clapping. A special thank to Bob Malloy for the AV tonight. Last minute, we asked him, he said, I'll be there, of course, whatever you need, Diane. So Bob, thank you from the bottom of my heart for always being there for us. And to Manchester Public TV for recording tonight's event. For those people that could not be here, this is a special night, so thank you so much for being here. Before we get started with tonight's program, I wanted to share a special moment, a special celebration that we do here at the Boys and Girls Club. We have a lot of longevity of people that stay and make a difference in the children's lives, and we wanted to celebrate them this evening. So starting with our staff, I'd like to invite Javon Morse down here. He's celebrating 5 years here at the Boys and Girls Club. He's also a club kid, so he grew up here, and it's so awesome to have him as our athletic director. So Javon, thank you so much. Our next candidate is Zach Clark. Zach has been with the Boys and Girls Club for 5 years as our team director. Come on down, Zach, thank you. I just love celebrating people. This is awesome. The next is Hashira Rodriguez for 10 years in the Boys and Girls Club movement. Hashira. Our next is Kim Kuehl, 20 years here at the Boys and Girls Club. Kim, thank you so much. Come on down. It's okay. We used to do this in the trustee meeting, but I think at the Hall of Fame, where we can do a lot of screaming and grateful clapping, it's all good stuff. So the board of directors, you know we couldn't do anything without our board. We have a phenomenal board. So I'd like to recognize their years of service. Mike St. Onge, 5 years of service. Come on down. Kind of have to run now. Our next person is George Zemas, 10 years of service here at the Boys and Girls Club. George was also recognized as a board member of the year, so another special thank you, George. This next person is going to stay with us forever, I hope. He's our treasurer, Jeff Wheeler. He's been serving for 15 years. Well, congratulations to all of you, and thank you for your dedication to the Boys and Girls Club and being a part of this amazing movement. We are moving mountains, we're changing lives, so we couldn't do it without all of you being here today and the impact you've had on our club. That's why tonight's so special, to be able to celebrate great human beings that have dedicated their lives to the club. And I'm looking at you right now. Steve, I've seen you on ladders doing amazing things, and we're going to tell your story tonight. But the best person to tell that story is my dear friend, John Clayton. He was inducted in 2012 into our Hall of Fame, and he just makes us all smile. So, John, do you want to take it away?
Good evening and welcome. I want to warn all of you inductees that Groucho Marx once had a great line that he refused to belong to a club that would have someone like him as a member. Consider that, while you still have time, to not become a part of a club in which I am a member. This has become a great celebration recognizing people who have long-standing ties with the club, but one of the things the club wants to do is start connecting with the younger alums, almost like a young professionals network through the Boys and Girls Club. So you younger people who think you're getting away free and we're not gonna hit you up for donations until you're old, put that out of your mind, okay? There's a new sheriff in town and the outreach is going to begin. The reason I am a club kid, and at this point, could I ask all the club kids to stand and be recognized? Those of you who were members of the club as kids? Wow. That is amazing. You know, I don't think the comparison is very apt, but it's almost like the mob. You know, once you get in the boys club, you can't get out, right? We're going to retain you and keep you. The reason I became a member of the club is simple biology. My mother had a baby girl. In the beginning, there were 5 Clayton boys, and if you can imagine the mayhem that took place in our home, you can imagine my mother was skeptical about raising a girl amongst 5 boys. So we all became members of the boys club, and that's what it was called at the time. So I owe my mother having my sister as my being a part of this great legacy that we celebrate here at the Boys and Girls Club. It's a birthplace for things you might not even imagine. When I was a kid and I came here, my favorite haven was the library. Why? I had 4 brothers. Daily combat was to be expected. So when I could come to the Boys and Girls Club and be in a place of quiet, it was a godsend for me. And while I was there, I would see this group gathered over on the side, and I was very curious because they were having a small classroom session, and I wondered why I couldn't go over and be with them. I witnessed the birth of the Derryfield School. It took place right here in the Manchester Boys and Girls Club, and look at what that institution has become over the course of the 50 years that have elapsed. My good friend Ellie Cochran is here with her husband David. She was one of those kids in that classroom, and I've been bugging her ever since for not letting me audit a class. But again, we are recognizing a great class of 3 individuals here tonight who have been of immense value to the club through the years. To begin with that, I'm going to ask Rick Zamoyda, who is he's a club kid. He's also the Director of IT Services here at the Boys and Girls Club, and he's going to introduce us to our first inductee. So, Rick, could you come up?
Thank you. Thank you, John. I don't know about you folks, but I'm about ready to take a little stroll down Boys and Girls Club, Boys Club, then Boys and Girls Club, memory lane. Steve started his humble journey with the Boys Club back in the 60s when his mother, Marilyn, signed both him and his brother, Ronnie, up for Camp Foster. His 2 late brothers, Danny and David Deshays, were also attending the Boys Club during this period. It was in the mid-1970s while Steve started to frequent Pinardville Club as a freshman in high school when he discovered a passion for music that no one else had possessed amongst his family of 8 siblings. His mother then took the time and taught him how to play the piano. Next, he ventured out to become a member of the Memorial High School band. Acting upon an invite from a high school friend, his passion for music eventually led him to the Boys Club's very own Muchachos Drum and Bugle Corps. And he loved it. He dedicated a large portion of his time and life to the Muchachos family throughout the remainder of the 70s, 80s, and even the reunions of the 90s. His dedication to music and admiration for the Muchachos pretty much solidified his commitment to the club. Of course, he also lists Dick Jarvis, Ken LaPointe, and Brian Tremblay for being the most impactful during his tenure. However, it was the Florence Gallad that kept him straight and clean and brought down the wrath of God whenever he got on a line or just came in with a messy appearance. Having said that, Stephen Tanner, for anybody who knew Florence Gallad back in the day, she took a liking to the Muchachos and ran it to a military grade A standard, a standard that included performance, appearance, and most of all, hygiene. And she ruled it with a ruler and an iron fist. Some of those items, I'd like to bring out a little arsenal, probably some of those weapons that she had that struck the fear of God into Steve. One being perhaps a cadence clicker. That's right, Stephen Tanner, stay in line. Steve's passion for dogs. I'm sure he came in many a times with hair all over his uniform. Does this strike a nerve? No? And then we have the always on call little sewing kit, nail clippers. Ah, it's needles, huh? Comb. My old friend. Or perhaps it was the deodorant or a bar of soap. None of it. Only Josh, and I'll leave it at that. I don't want anybody to start thinking that Steve was the stinky kid of the Muchachos. Of course, then there's Melissa Tanner. Now Melissa Susie, congratulations. Steve's only child and loving daughter, and often referred to as amazing, but only by herself. She too grew up within the Boys Club and attended Camp Foster between 2000 and 2009, partaking in the wild adventures found within creepy old brown cabins, Three-Finger Willie hikes, swimming, arts and crafts with Dick Jarvis, and arts and crafts. These were just the start of her fondest memories. It was when she matured into a young adult staff, working both at Jewett and Camp Foster, when she finally realized the ties to the club were really no different than her father's. That being that they both shared great memories growing up and so many lifelong friendships that they still cherish today as well. To say Steve has left his mark on the club over the years is an understatement. He was well known for being Ken LaPointe and Norm Penner's handyman back in the day, and his premier woodworking can still be found in many areas within the older side of the building, much of which is still proudly being used today. But alas, nowadays, when he's not cruising the deep blue sea or camping out in the great wilderness of New Hampshire, he can be found dabbling in his love for technology at his home in Bedford or working at any of the nearby storage facilities installing security systems. To many of us around the club today, he's known as Alarm Guy, keeping all the parents and the staff and the kids as safe as possible, and beckoning to every call for help coming from yours truly. So having said that, Steve, Alarm Guy. Steve's known as Alarm Guy by day. But at night, or when we really, truly need him, he dons on his mask and his cape, and he becomes Super Alarm Guy, our hero. I can personally add, though, that Steve has played a big part in the growth of the technology infrastructure and the security over the past 15 years. We both enjoyed it, and I, too, have even learned a little bit from him. Like, there's no way in hell I'm ever gonna own my own business. There's one more thing I can add. Both Steve and his daughter truly see the emphasis that the club places on kids, and believe strongly that this is what sets us apart from others. Steve recalls viewing the Boys Club during his younger years as a glorified games room, with many activities, games, lots of kids, and few staff. He adds, to personally witness the growth from what it once was to what it is now is simply incredible. A facility that can now accommodate more kids and teens, provide more activities with proper supervision, assist families in need, and secure resources necessary so that the club can deliver for generations to come. This is what keeps Steve, and perhaps even his daughter, Melissa, both connected to this place. As you all know, my name is Rick Zamora, Director of ITT Services here at the club. I became a member of the Manchester Boys Club back in 1978. And Steve, even though our paths never really crossed, I'm kind of glad they didn't. You see, I just can't visualize you playing basketball. And for the life of me, and Dick can probably attest, I don't think the Muchachos were ever auditioning for harmonica players. So that all worked out for the best. However, I will say, and I do appreciate working with you and catching up on all those missed times we shared through people that we know now and people that we knew then. Most of all, for your friendship over the past 15 years. Without any further ado, Alarm Guy, I'm pleased to introduce you the Boys and Girls Club Manchester 2021 Hall of Fame inductee, Steve Tanner.
Well, thank you, Rick. Thank you, Diane. Not much to say, to be honest with you. I spend more time here than I used to, it seems lately. But it's a good thing. Not much for words. Thank you.
No offense to your dad, but we do want somebody good-looking in the photo, besides Diane. Carolyn is our photographer for the evening. She was taking candids earlier, so ideally you'll be able to see some photographs on the Boys and Girls Club website before we're through here tonight. One thing that always strikes me about the Boys and Girls Club is the amazing prevalence of families and family continuity in the club. You know, as I stand here, I look out at this crowd and I see the Truncelitos are represented, the Merciers are represented, the Penners. My high school classmate Terry Penner's here. His dad, Norm, was the director of the club. His brother Norm is here as well. And it came, the Valises. We're in the Nick Valis Gymnasium. How much of a tribute is that to families and their strong bond with the Boys and Girls Club? And this was struck home to me a few years ago. As you may recall, when the club celebrated its 100th birthday, they came up with the idea of producing a book celebrating 100 years of history of the club. And because I have a little bit of history with books, I was asked if I would help out with the process. A young lady named Debbie Smith was brought on, and she did an amazing job compiling information from a century about the Boys and Girls Club. I wrote the foreword for the book. I helped her try to find publishers, but in the end, it was Debbie's project. And she was so proud when the book finally came in, she asked me to come down so she could personally present me with my copy of the book. And we talk about continuity in the club. Among the many photos in the montage on the cover was a 1930s photograph from Camp Foster. And there's these four skinny kids with the shoulder strap bathing suits, and I look down, and the one on the right is my father. I had nothing to do with it, and Debbie didn't even know until I told her. So when we talk about the family, about the Boys and Girls Club, those are illustrations that prove what we talk about with such passion. So now, as we move on to our second inductee, it's my pleasure to introduce another club kid, Antonio Feliciano, who's an alumnus, and he's also the Director of Operations here at the Boys and Girls Club now. We hire from within.
I am honored to be here tonight to induct Florence Glaude into the Hall of Fame. Grandmama, as we called her during my years here at the club, and it was the first face that I saw when I came to the club. She was always happy to see us and had a smile that would brighten up the room. Senior boy 146, she would say as I enter the club. She may not have remembered all of the members' name, but she remembered your tag number for sure. Good evening, my name is Antonio Feliciano, and I am the Director of Operations here at the club. But to Florence, I will always be Senior Boy 146. Florence wore many hats here at the club through her years. She was a club librarian, and assisting hundreds of members with homework or simply reading them a book or two, which it wasn't me because I never attended. As of right now, I still go to my very good friend Jocelyn to get my papers proofread before I speak in front of people. Wish I would have attended some of those classes with Florence. She was the camp cook for overnight at Camp Foster, and she took great pride in being the receptionist and welcoming everyone to the club. Florence was welcome boys and girls to sit with her at the desk, and she would teach the kids how to greet people and check the members in. Florence was extremely kind and deeply cared for every young person she greeted each day. It is often difficult to measure the impact you have on a young person, but Florence's kindness, compassion, and genuine love for the club and its members radiated in all she did. Her kindness and love is what I remember about her. Florence had 7 children who joined the corps, the muchachos, either in the color guard or the drum or the bugle corps. Being the strong family matriarch that she was, Florence became the corps mom, where she helped with parades, chaperoned overnight trips, and often hosted corps members overnight in her home before an early parade. Florence's house in Manchester Street was often filled with children's friends, and it's our belief that her house has a larger membership than this club. As if all things I mentioned weren't enough, Florence volunteered every Sunday night for bingo, where she sold the game paper packets for many, many years. She also spent many years running the coat check for the annual club formal ball, and she remembered everybody's coat. Florence gave to the club all she could, and our lives were all better because of it. It might be hard to believe, but there were many times that I showed up to the club without my membership tag. And it would cost 25 cents for that day pass to come into the club. Most days, I did not have that 25 cents to come into the club. But Grandmama will reach into her purse and pull out a quarter and say, "Here you go, senior boy 146. But please, just don't tell Ken, or you and I are both going to be in trouble." After all these years, I think it is time to pay back what I owe. So I broke into my piggy bank and have a whole bunch of quarters for the family here. But I don't think that's enough to repay for everything that she did for me. No matter what you call her over the 3 decades, Florence, Flo, Grandma, Miss Glaude, or Grandmama, you were lucky she was a part of your life. She was more than a fixture at the club. She was a heartbeat. Tonight, we're here to celebrate her life and endless contribution she made to the club and the youth of our city. It is my great honor to be here to induct Florence Glaude to the Boys and Girls Club Hall of Fame. Please join me in welcoming her family to come up to accept this award on behalf of Florence.
I would just like to say it's an honor and a privilege, to be up here to accept the award with my family, for my mom, who really, with all the family, like he was saying earlier, I look back and I just have 2 kids. She had 7 kids, and we might have had 20 at the house at one night. So it's really an honor and a privilege. And I look out here and I look at Brian and Steve, and what they mean to the club and what they've done to all the members here. It's really an honor and a privilege, to be honest. I don't know what else to say, but I really appreciate everyone out here. Thank you.
Damn, I was hoping Antonio was going to leave the quarters. He took them with him. One thing I'd like to do now is ask those members of the Hall of Fame, previous inductees, to please stand and be recognized. I know there were several of you here in the room. Dick, be careful. I get to introduce Diane when it was her turn. So, the recent addition and expansion of the Boys and Girls Club has been a remarkable process. And when the program is over, we're asking those who would like to visit the various new parts of the club to please do so. We'll have some of the kids who will take you around. We think it's a great opportunity to see how the Boys and Girls Club mission has grown and expanded over the years. And a local man had a lot to do with that expansion. Several years ago, as you may recall, the Boys and Girls Club launched a fundraising drive to fund a very expensive campaign. And there was a major process underway to get a local celebrity to help announce that fund drive. So Steve McMahon and Brian Tremblay approached me when I was still writing for the Union Leader and asked if I would be interested in maybe interviewing Adam Sandler, who was a former club kid, and see if he might be interested in making a donation to that expansion. There were all kinds of grandiose plans. They were going to fly me out to Hollywood because Adam was making a movie called You Don't Mess with the Zohan, Israeli spy turned hairdresser, if you don't know the premise. And so we were making headway, but it was starting to get really complicated. So we decided that rather than me going out to LA, Adam, who's working on a film set, would record a video greeting for the kids when they made the announcement about the progress that was being made on the development fund. So here we are in this very gymnasium with about 250 of the kids and a lot of important grown-ups, including board members, who want to watch Adam's greeting for the kids and talk about the fundraising. Nobody screened the video. So Adam is sitting in a trailer on the movie set with Zohan on the back of his director's chair, and he's just looking at the camera. It was a very unsophisticated production. I think you would agree, Brian. I think you, Katie, could produce a better video than Adam's people did. But it was Adam sitting in a chair, and he says, "Hi, kids. I want to tell you how much I love the Manchester Boys and Girls Club. I used to go there all the time when I was a kid. I played bumper pool. I played basketball. I peed my pants. I crapped my pants." And at this point, any semblance of order was gone. The kids were screaming, laughing, and it just became such a special thing. We adults were chagrined, obviously, because it got out of our control quickly, but the kids didn't mind. They had a blast. And why was it important? Adam Sandler donated $1 million to the Boys and Girls Club. I sometimes jokingly tell people I've never seen an Adam Sandler movie that I wasn't paid to attend, but then I follow up with that story. So, remarkable young man who remembers what this club meant to him as a child and got us on a great start on that fundraising campaign. So, cheers to Adams. Our next presenter, Hashira Rodriguez, another club kid, who's also Director of Development here for the Manchester Boys and Girls Club. Hashira?
Try not to knock over the deodorant that's down there. This next inductee is truly one of a kind. He has always been someone I can count on, sometimes even at the last minute. Years ago, when I was the advisor for our Keystone Club, I would take teens on conference trips throughout the Northeast region. Not only were some of these teens sometimes experiencing leaving Manchester for the first time, but we usually had spent all of our money before we even got on the road. It really wasn't even a consideration to include transportation in our budget because we always knew we would get hooked up with the best of the best. And by the best of the best, I don't mean the old gray buses the club used to have years ago, but instead with a newer rental van donated for each trip from a local business. Anytime I needed a van, I knew I could go upstairs to the development office and see what could be done. I'd walk into our Director of Development's office with my best smile, and he would already know I was up to something. I'd do my best on my ask for the van. He would then ask, "When do you need it by?" And somehow, my answer was, always, tomorrow. I never said my time management skills were the best, but this also worked in my favor. Just lost my place. Okay, there we go, sorry. This also worked in my favor because it would be less likely that he would forget. Each time, he would laugh, pick up the phone, make a call, and so easily could get anyone to say yes each time for a van, even with less than 24 hours notice. He would hang up and say, "All right, Hashira, you're all set, but next time, I need a little bit more notice." My answer was always the same. "Thanks, Brian. You're the man." My name is Hashira Rodriguez, and I'm the Director of Development here at the club. It is an absolute honor to be standing up here in front of all of you to tell you about our final Hall of Fame inductee, Brian Tremblay. Brian devoted a lifetime to bettering the futures of children here at the Boys and Girls Club of Manchester, 42 years to be exact. Soft-spoken, but somehow always has a way to convince anyone to say yes to supporting the club, even if it's just by providing the most precious gift that all of us have, our time. Brian has been a friend, a mentor, an advocate, and truly our greatest ambassador of the Boys and Girls Club of Manchester. The incredible thing is that he does this all with such great humility. Brian's long career at the club began in 1975 when a friend encouraged him to apply for the physical education director position at what was then the Manchester Boys Club. After driving to the club from Keene almost every day for nearly a week after his interview, they finally called him to pack his belongings and head to Manchester because he got the job. A talented athlete with a passion for sports and benevolence for youth, Brian was a natural fit. Only problem was that Brian showed up for his first day of work without a place to live in Manchester. He only seemed to realize that when the club closed that night at 9 p.m. Thankfully, that same friend that encouraged him to apply for the job also let him stay at his place so that Brian wouldn't have to sleep in his Volkswagen. Sometime later, after figuring out his living arrangements, Brian would be joined by his beautiful wife, Judy. Judy and Brian married here in Manchester and raised two remarkable children, Mark and Jenna. Now, as you can imagine, with the cost of childcare and working for a nonprofit, it wasn't a surprise when Brian almost took a job at a post office. The thing was, though, that he needed to have a lot of information memorized for the test. So it's not a surprise that Brian likely set the lowest score for test taker at the post office. Thankfully for us, that meant we were able to keep him here at the club. At this time, I would like to thank his wife, Judy, for selflessly sharing Brian with us here at the club over the many years. We know there were many times that the club kept him from his responsibilities at home, but now that he's retired, we're glad that you both have endless time for pickleball and to be the best grandparents to your beautiful grandchildren, Bria and Addie. Judy, these are for you. During his time here at the Boys and Girls Club, Brian served in several positions. He was also the Boys Club's program director, where he led big wheel racing as the last activity during Saturday Club. Brian would stack tables, making tunnels and obstacles for kids to race through. It's a memory that I know that many former club kids still remember as their favorite activity. Speaking of Saturday Club, Brian would have to be here at 10 a.m. to work at Saturday program. There was one time where Brian was late to Saturday Club because he had spent that Friday evening celebrating the birth of his friend Tony's first child. When he walked into the club, Brian was greeted by Florence at the main desk. She looked at Brian and said, "Oh, you're in trouble. Mr. Penner wants you in his office." Brian began to walk towards the office, but Florence stopped him. She held out her hand with some mints and told Brian, "You're going to need these." Which is why you'd find mints at the tables in the back in honor of Brian. Brian also served as an assistant executive director and got to be here when the club went from a boys club to a boys and girls club in the 1980s. That change itself was an adjustment for sure, especially as the club wasn't used to having girls in the building. Brian couldn't quite figure out why the door that exited from the boys' locker room showers was such a popular area for girls to hang out at. Until he realized that the doors opened up to a perfect view of the showers. Only took him about a year to figure that one out. Years later, as the director of development, Brian built a culture of caring and kindness, which has created a legacy of compassion and devotion to our city's youth. Brian ensured that the club had enough support to be a safety net, or sometimes a second parent. Do this every time. or sometimes a second parent for kids like Jen Wyszynski, Don LaPlante, Shirley Tomlinson, Catherine Burns, and even myself. I do. His belief in providing, thank you. His belief in providing children with opportunities for growth and development has helped create a strong philanthropic foundation for the Boys and Girls Club of Manchester. When asked why Brian worked here for so many years, he answered, "When you do this work, you don't come to work expecting to impact someone's life today. You do it because you love it and love being around everyone here. You share yourself with the people around you and get to watch them share themselves with you. We are so thankful for you sharing yourselves with us, Brian. The impact that you have had on so many lives is tremendous." When asked what his life would be without the Boys and Girls Club, Brian says that he wouldn't even want to know. His role here has been life-fulfilling. Between the connections that have turned into lifelong friendships, his wife, his children, his grandchildren, and the Boys and Girls Club, he says it doesn't get any better. And I couldn't agree with you more. Brian, it is an absolute honor to be standing up here as we induct you into the 2021 Boys and Girls Club Manchester Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Tremblay.
Thank you. Oh boy, what a love fest, huh? So, thank you all. Congratulations to Steve and to the Glod family. Well deserved. And thank you all for taking the time to be here right now, because our time is precious. And so you've given us a gift tonight, and I'm very thankful for that. I've been warned, some say that I'm wordy, talk a little bit. I wouldn't say Judy, who said that to me. But a couple things come across my mind. You know, I saw Jerry Glod and Steve Tanner. I was thinking about, we built our house in Hooksett in 1984, and those two guys came to help us paint the house, the inside of the house. And I remember, you know, we'd paint, we'd get paint everywhere, and so I took a 5-gallon bucket and put some water in it, and then when we had to wash our hands, we'd go in that bucket, because we didn't have any running water at the time. It was just an empty house. So anyway, we're painting along, and I opened up another 5-gallon bucket of paint, put it beside our wash bucket, and at the end of the day, you know, I said, "Okay, boys, Steve, you know, Jerry, thanks a lot for helping. Let's clean up and get out of here." And so Steve walks right over to the bucket of paint that I opened up, sticks his hands right up to his elbows, and Steve, that's the wrong bucket. No, the one beside it, use that. So anyway, it's just one of those memories that popped into my head. You know, you did a great job thanking my family, and the first thing I want to do is thank my family for all this wonderful support that they've given me. Since I retired, it's been quite a journey since 2020, and I've had some challenges that I didn't expect to have, and and everything's fine. We're doing great. But I'll tell you that I couldn't have gone through some of the stuff that I did without this unbelievable wave of love from all of you and all of my friends here. So I want to make sure that I thank all of you for, yeah. Yeah, so it's all good. And, you know, I said this is a love fest because it truly is. I mean, I have to tell you, there's a couple of things that popped into my head. One, it's already been talked about, this wonderful family that I'm blessed with, but I have another family too, and I consider you my second family, because you've been such a big part of my life since I was 25 years old, and it continues today. When we come to a function like this, it truly is a love fest. There's nothing better than the hugs that we give each other, and the Boys and Girls Club is at the core of all of that love. So a very important part of my life is the friendship, and we got a lot of pickleball friends that we've met over here. Crazy pickleball friends. They're wonderful. And I just would like to thank you again for being here. Ron Borovage is here tonight, and now Ron, he and I played baseball against each other, and I'm from Keene, and back when you're a teenager and you're from Keene, Manchester's the evil empire over here. And so we would just have these unbelievable baseball games against the wonderful athletes in Manchester. And then when I came here in 1975, I got to play baseball with these guys that I played against for so many years. And it was just this great transformation of understanding that, wow, these are great guys in Manchester. So that's one of the gifts that the club has given me, is an opportunity to reconnect with guys like Ron and some of the other athletes that I played against and was able to play with here. And I would like to say this before I forget. Oh, look, a bird. I did that for Natalie. I don't know why they think I can't focus on anything. So before we all joined in the gym, we had our annual trustee meeting, and trustees is a group of people that support what we do here for the kids, and I was thinking about the leadership of an organization like this, and the board members. These are volunteers from the community that have careers, they have families, and they have everything that surrounds those career and families. And then while they're doing all that, they take the time to come here and help our staff. And in many ways, the board of directors, those wonderful volunteers, are kind of an unsung group in the community. And I've often felt that way over the years, so I've got this incredible compassion and thankfulness for all of the volunteers since I got here in 1975. Many, many volunteers that have come through our doors and are part of this family. So all of you trustees that have been board members and all you board members, thank you so much for allowing this club to survive and thrive over the years. Really. So, yeah, it's well deserved. And so I'm looking over here to my left, and I see Steve McMahon over here. Now, what was your first year that you got on our board, Steve? 1985. 1985, Steve McMahon got on our board, and he's on the board now. Continued that for all those years. And one of the reasons that Steve's remained on the board is because the light bulb went off, and it all became I'm not on the board just to be on the board. I'm on the board because what we're doing is impacting the lives of the kids that walk through our doors. So, thank you, Steve, for all those years. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Diane for her incredible compassion and leadership. You know, everything starts at the top, and you know, you've done a remarkable job. This club, I hope you take the time, if you haven't been in the building, if you have time to walk around the club. If you came early enough, you got the prize, and the prize is the screams and the hollers of the kids out in the playground. And you know, if you come back to the club, try to come back when the kids are in the building, and you'll go on a tour of the building. And it may seem like absolute chaos when the kids are here, but it's not. And so I would encourage you if you're fortunate enough to come back here when the kids are in the building, take the time to just listen to the noise. It's not really noise. And suck that noise right in, soak it in with you, because that's the sound of kids that are having a wonderful time interacting, and they're happy, they're laughing, and this is what the club is all about. And really, this is the opportunities that it's incumbent upon us to give these to as many kids as we have. And I'll leave with this. Within the next 5 days, you're going to have an opportunity to walk by a child. Actually, it doesn't even have to be a child. It could be an older child. But going to have that opportunity to walk by them, and it may be just the two of you walking down the sidewalk. So when that happens to you, lock eyes with them. Lock eyes with them and just wish them a good day, because you'll never know the impact of that you just did that kindness for somebody. So thank you all very much for being here. I love you all, and I'm completely honored with this gift. Thank you.
We just can't stop celebrating Brian. So we have something that we really want to share with all of you, but I'd like to invite his family up here to share this. So Mark and Jenna, please come on stage.
Good evening. I'm Mark.
And I'm Jenna.
Behind us are, you've been introduced, but my mother Judy and my beautiful wife Kyle and two daughters Addie and Bria. And we're up here to share a little bit about the Brian Tremblay Family Fund. Essentially, the context for this endowment came out of his 70th birthday, around what my father was referring to, the rough stretch. You know, he just had his heart surgery and a cancer diagnosis, and through that period, there were just so many people that stopped in to give him love and support, called him. There was a touching video that many of you were on that, you know, he was just blown away by. And a lot of you in this room were a part of some of that. And most of the voices were tied to the Boys and Girls Club in some way, and people who believe in the same things that our father worked his entire life to promote, namely finding ways to support the club and the youth in this city. And if you know our father, you know he likes to stay productive and connected to the people and to the causes that he cares about. And so through retirement and COVID lockdowns and all of the various states of recovery, he couldn't do some of those things. Things like attend Rotary, board meetings, go play golf or pickleball, or help out much with like certain fundraisers like golf, which he stayed active after retirement with. So we wanted to come up with some way that yes, brought him back some of that feeling of productivity, but more importantly, something that would pull in those people who care so much about him in the club's mission and honor his work in a lasting way.
So we reached out to Diane and Natalie, and with their help, The resounding solution was to start an endowment. When they asked us what we wanted the money where we wanted the money directed, we immediately realized that was not our question to answer. So a couple weeks later, we sat down as a family and shared our desire to spearhead the fundraising efforts to establish the endowment and asked him where the money should be directed. He was immediately teary-eyed. We said he could think about it and get back to us, but he did not need to. He thought for a moment, but it wasn't for more than a minute, and he answered with an emotional but confident voice, explaining in detail why he wanted to help as many underserved children as possible attend Camp Foster during the summer seasons. Like you just witnessed, he spoke from his heart and with such authenticity that we all had tears in our eyes in the moment, and immediately we became more connected to the cause.
So we're not here to explain this why in detail. Just wanted to set the context for the endowment. We'll let him explain a little bit more about that in a second. But before we go, from our family, we just wanted to thank the club, its employees, the board, and all its patrons and supporters for the support they've shown our father through the years. This place and all of you who are connected to it truly are a second family to him and to us, and he just said that as well. If you're inspired to contribute to the club in general or to this endowment, I believe there's like an easy link online, or you can talk to Diane or Hashira. They can help you further, but we just want to say thank you so much. Without any further ado, we want to just call him up one more time, just to say a few words about camp and the endowment. Thank you.
Well, Camp Foster is near and dear to us, at the club, and for many reasons. But most importantly, during the summer months, these are critical times for kids. The schools are closed. Two income families, mom and dad are working, and we have an opportunity here to seek out kids with the most need and provide them with the funds they need to go to Camp Foster. If you've not been to Camp Foster, it is a remarkable place for kids to spend their summer days. And so what I wanted to do is to have a revenue stream that our staff could use to identify kids who we know these kids don't belong in their houses during the summer months because they'll be alone. So our staff can identify those kids because we see them all year long during the school year, and wrap our arms around those kids during the summer months and have them go to Camp Foster and have a life-changing experience at camp. So that's what this is all about. So I think that's succinct enough, right, Judy? Yeah. We've been sitting long enough. All right, thank you all. Love you.
I just want to thank the Tremblay family and the community for donating to this endowment. As Brian said, it's going to make a tremendous impact. Jenna and Mark, I do remember crying when we decided to do this with Natalie. It's well over $60,000, and it's growing every day. So thank you so much for this endowment. John's going to wrap it up, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't have to tell Steve and Brian about making a lifetime commitment to the club because they've done so already, and that's why they're in the Hall of Fame. But for those of us civilians who've been inducted into this hall, yes, it's a wonderful honor, but there's also an obligation that comes with it to remember your connections to the club. And again, as much as we enjoy the pomp and ceremony and having people say nice things about us, it's important that we remember what the club did for us and continue to support it going forward. So, without reading Jenna's notes, We mentioned tours of the building. We'd love to have you take advantage of that and see some of the incredible new programs that are in place here. Thank our sponsors. If you can get them up there, thank you. You're the best. Check out the Hall of Fame wall, which is in the foyer as you go to the main entrance, and you'll get to see some of the elite prior members of this club. My classmates were Kevin Cloherty and Bill Marvin, and we still stay in touch. And we'd like you to enjoy the food and drink while we finish taking photographs of those inductees. So again, on behalf of the Manchester Boys and Girls Club, I want to thank you for joining us for our 2022 Hall of Fame induction. Please enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.